Welcome once again to Political Paradigm. I'm Terry Ikumi. Today, we turn our attention away from the APC and the PDP, the ones you call the big names, and we focus on those ones who are trying to come up as the third force. My guest is the presidential candidate of the Young Progressives Party, who is also the initiator of the Reset Nigeria project. My guest is Prince Malik Ado Ibrahim. Welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you, Terry. Nice to be here.
Congratulations, first of all, on your emergence as the YPP presidential candidate. I mean, you've been in the party just a little over a year?
Just about
and
a year.
You're already the presidential candidate. It's not a small feat, is it?
No, not at all. Hard work.
Great. So I'd like to ask you this question. You have a lot going for you. You've also been able to build a good name for yourself using your businesses. Why are you interested, suddenly, in politics? Many people describe Nigerian politics as dirty. Why have you decided to get into it?
I think the most important part of why I decided to come into politics or to come into the leadership roles in Nigeria was just be tired of complaining. And I'm not a vocal complainer, but I'm a thoughtful person. Why can't we get any better? Why are things not moving? I operate in a number of different countries, and I see good political governance. I see elected positions and people doing what the people's bidding is. And I just felt that, it's time. It's really time to show something different. And that was really what encouraged me to come forward. There's nothing here other than a will to love my country and to perform the best of my ability for my country.
But why the presidency, though? I mean, it's your first shot at politics, and anyone would easily say that you could run through the Kogi elections and win. I mean, considering your family background and your personal achievements, why have you chosen to run for the president?
Well, I honestly feel there's a very big deficit in leadership role in the candidates that I've seen. I don't think they offer anything new. It's the same old thing packaged differently. And I really feel that we're at a time in the global age now where politicians aren't just going to be talking, they have to be doers. They have to have something to present to their people. And Africans are at that point. Other countries have had their eureka moment, and we're about to have ours. And I believe that it's people like me that have tremendous amount of knowledge and exposure and have worked internationally also that can bring something back home, proffer a different direction, and hope that people will actually buy into it. It's a tall order. I'm not mistaken by that. But we have a very young population that is being drafted into the old ways. We keep seeing the same thing being done over and over again, and nobody's actually saying, coming forward. And I think to come forward is even fresh enough. But I don't think breezing into anything politically as a businessman, it won't be easy, even if I went to the legislature. But one thing that's key to me is that I don't come with any baggage. I'm coming with fresh ideas. I'm coming with an entrepreneurial spirit. And I believe that Africa of tomorrow requires that we disengage from the past, from being raw material people to being producing people. And I think our old politicians are just there, taking the raw materials and manage that rather than getting your hands dirty and producing things for Africa.
Let's talk about the presidential ambition now. Since your declaration, I've observed that you've done quite some media rounds. But beyond the media rounds, what's very important is the sort of engagements you've had politically, considering that you now have to appeal to a broader percentage of Nigerians, especially those at the rural areas. So beyond your media engagement, what sort of political engagement have you had, and what sort of engagements do you plan to have going forward?
I think some of the things that I've done in my past also speak for me on a localized framework. I built a good charity platform in all the northern states in Nigeria with boreholes. I've built some mosques. Actually, I'm building the largest mosque in the middle part of the country to celebrate my father. That's going to be open sometime later on this year. I've worked with Qatar charities in orphanages around the country, whether in the southern Christian side or in the northern Muslim side. I've presented myself not because of politics, so that wasn't my main thought, but localizing was not an issue for me because the way my antecedents, the way my family has been, whether we were in Jos or Lagos or Kano, Kaduna, we've had a presence business-wise, and we understand people. And I'd have no fear of going anywhere in this country because I believe that if you want to rule, you must feel that you are part of that whole country. And that's my Nigerianness coming again. So going to do the basics, going to knock on doors, to present myself on a local level, to use technology to reach young people. Look, everyone talks about structure. And I always say to myself, if the structure was so good, how come only 15 million people voted for the last president out of a possible 86 million? The second place person got 13 million votes. What structure are we talking about? You didn't reach anything because people don't believe in you. So my main push now is to let people believe that somebody cares about them. And that will come from being scrutinized properly for people to understand that I'm just not a first generation person coming here to say, here I am, flash in the pan. I'm coming to show that we've cared, we've been here, we've served Nigeria, and my generation of the Atta family is going to serve the next generation of Nigerians as well.
Well, when you talk about structure and put figures to it, you think 15 million and 11 million from the APC and the PDP suggests that the candidates were not popular enough?
No, I think they offered poor a presentation to Nigerian people.
Yeah, but then they had structures. They had their personal structures and their party structures, but that's the outcome.
I think they were...
You are, however,
yes.
You're on the YPP.
Yes.
We don't know what kind of structure the YPP has, but in the past years, I can recall clearly that at the federal level, the YPP has only been able to produce a senator.
Yes, so we're proud of him.
Of course, you should be. So put that side by side with the other parties. What kind of popularity or structure would you bring to the table that could match them?
Yes, I think from my understanding and my due diligence on Nigerian politics, everything has moved in different ways. It's not the same way as it was in 1999 and the various political eras since then. 2023 presents a very particular point in Nigeria's history that if one thinks it's business as usual, I think they'll be grossly mistaken, because we've got a very young population that has actually shown one thing that it's capable of doing. It can bring this government to its knees, and it has done. NSAS, one Lakers event caused this country to shut down. When they intend to pull that muscle, it will paralyze this country. And if anyone's under any illusion that Nigerian youth are sitting there in the sidelines not going to vote, I think they've read the mood wrong. And I think that presenting to them with the whole sort of Agbero type thing, bring people to the table, let my people vote. Look, people stood against the military. They got shot. They lost their lives. The Arab Spring wasn't expected to be what it was. It just took somebody burning himself, and all of a sudden, countries fell. Nigeria should not make that mistake. The youth are looking for something different. We can mobilize, and that youthful exuberance can turn into a form of evolution. I don't want to use the word revolution because it sort of causes one to think of something violent, but we're at a very pivotal moment in Nigeria, and I think that until these structures that are there prove themselves to be real, there is room for a third rail, definitely.
Well, I think it's good that you mentioned the NSAS protest, because you joined the YPP, I think 8 days after that Lekki Tollgate incident.
Something like that.
Was that a trigger for you to get into politics?
I was fed up. Why would we have to do that? Why would we have to go and hurt our own people? Why couldn't we engage? And a couple of things were wrong with the whole NSAS thing. There's blame on both sides. I think it was a fantastic idea. I loved it. It actually gave me some hope that we were suddenly awake. But we didn't have a leader. The NSAS environment was one way they thought they would be able to achieve a goal, but any kind of movement without a leader is doomed to fail. mainly because the government couldn't negotiate with anyone, and they didn't want, the NSAS movement itself didn't want a leader because they felt that maybe they'll be sold out or whatever. So they were infiltrated, and that way that it all petered out. But it showed that we have capacity, and the capacity that even the structures that we're talking about couldn't understand. Youth technology played a very big part in the movement and how it happened and how it seemed to just sprout up here and there, and the structures couldn't figure it out. I think they need to beware, because if they find a lightning rod, somebody who believes in the new Nigeria, the new Nigerian tribe, which is boundless, it doesn't have a religion or anything, it just has a leader that wants to bring the best of Nigeria forward, structures are dead.
So are you satisfied with the level of awareness of the youths now in politics, especially since that NSAS protest?
I think even the events of the two structured parties and their sort of political shenanigans over these primaries has made people even fed up. Why did we have to go through that? Why is money being thrown around? The numbers we're hearing, the kind of disregard for what's going on in daily life. We're throwing away millions of dollars just to be in a position to be elected. They've already told us what's going to happen. They already put that image forward of, we're going to buy this thing no matter what happens. But the only thing you'll not be able to buy is the hearts and minds of people. And I believe that someone like myself, politicians that have Nigeria at their heart, will do their best to try to win the hearts and minds of these young people and give a future, give hope, sell hope. I'm peddling hope. I'm not interested in anything else. If you cannot believe me and you go somewhere else, then I understand. But I'm still peddling hope. And as long as I have that youthful exuberance and I have hope in my heart for a better country, I must do my best to show it.
So it's safe to say you're hoping or banking on the support of the youths?
They're the majority of the country. They're what makes Nigeria tick. They're the 60% of the voters are young people. There is no way an Atiku or a whoever, whether it's Tinubu, is going to come forward and appeal on any level to a youthful Nigerian that's hoping for the future. I don't see it. I'm in the race with them. So whether they don't like their names being talked about or anything else, they do not appeal to the set of individuals that I know, that I deal with on a daily basis in my technology companies, in my power companies, in the military industrial complex. They don't understand. They don't have the energy also. So I'm not counting on them. I think the optics that they present, their history, their antecedents, should definitely tell Nigerians that we're in for stormy days ahead if we go the same way.
I noticed that you left out the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, mentioning Atiku and Tinubu. And I say that because while we're having this conversation about the youth, you find quite a number of educated youths have taken it upon themselves to give their full support to Peter Obi. Some have even gone to the extent of organizing rallies for free, making donations for him, and then taking the campaigns to the rural areas to get people involved in the process. He seems to have that youth population behind him. Where will you come in?
Well, I think he's marketed himself well. I don't see that changing my notion of anybody who's been in politics in the last 30 years in Nigeria has failed us. If he was so good, why is it just now that he's now coming into prominence? He's an adventurer as far as I'm concerned. He's going to market himself just as I would. But history should be what we look at. What have you built? He was a governor. Big deal. The state hasn't improved. There are things, there are mistakes everybody made. I'm sorry that the only advantage I have is that I don't have a political track record. But I've built things, and they're standing, and they're still standing. But their antecedents, the states they built, the structures they supposedly built when they were there have fallen. So they were not deep-rooted. And I can't see how somebody who markets himself as champion of the youth could not even get his former, party leader, Atiku, to get him past the 2019 elections. For me, yes, it may be popular in the East, fantastic. But the East or the North or the South or wherever it is that you are segmented in does not make you a national leading figure. You have to prove yourself. And if we make a mistake in picking the wrong person, it's not because I haven't spoken. It's because we just make the wrong choice. That's the only way I look at this.
So you just mentioned his track record and questioned it as well. And for some Nigerians, experience plays a big part in their decision to decide who will take over the reins in 2023. You have no political history, as you already mentioned, and I don't think you have a public service history as well.
Well, that would be the first thing you've gotten wrong.
Let me hear what you have.
So let's talk about political experience. Political experience means what? Did somebody vote for you? Yes. But none of them, not one of the people that's running, has ever been president of this country. So being a governor or a minister or whatever you are, it doesn't mean anything. You were good at, or you were voted for that particular thing that you went for.
But that doesn't answer the question of why anyone would pick you without the experience over those who have the experience.
Well, the experience in what? I've run an agency at the United Nations with 154 countries. Has anybody done that? They don't have my experience in the international field. I've run military companies. None of them have done that. I've been in some of the largest governments in the world and worked with, whether it's in the Asia or Africa or the Middle East, I've worked with governments. They trust me. I'm not here because I believe I'm some local person that's going to try to spy my way into politics. I believe I have what it will take to make Nigeria not just great again, but on the world stage, to be recognized for what we really are. We're very intelligent people. So the experience that somebody has as a governor of a state does not mean you can run 200 million people, build a business. Most of these states are taking from the federal money that comes in. There's not one state, maybe Lagos, and only because of the numbers. Not one other state can tell me that they have structures they've built an economy that is still working. They always go back to the government and receive their federal character money. There's not one state that produces anything. And even the Lagos we're talking about is just IGR, really. It doesn't build anything that is sold anywhere. But that's what I do. I'm in 18 countries in 3 different businesses that I run. I have over 450 employees globally. I'm not doing this because I feel that I must make my name. I'm doing it because I believe Nigeria has everything it needs. It has youth, which is our biggest supporting element for growth. We have had people try to build power in this country. They've never done it. Billions and billions of dollars have been spent on the power sector and nothing has been developed. If you take that as part of governance, they've all failed. They've all failed. Roads, we've had roads since 1960, the same ones. They've just been repaved. We don't have tollways. We build one and it's a convenient spot, but the traffic moving goods between states, the interstate traffic in Nigeria is poor because bad roads, no maintenance culture. The next president of Nigeria doesn't want to be a president, must not want to be a president. He must want to be a leader. And he must want to do one other thing that I like to say. He must be the CEO of Nigeria Incorporated. He must learn to run this country so that it generates income, not just locally, but internationally. It employs its people, that we can have a pride to go outside and say, built in Nigeria, produced in Nigeria. We try to take goods out now and they get sent back because there's poor quality control. Governance. Where's the Export Promotion Council? We talk about all these things, but the goods get returned. That's not work. Your president must know what's going on and achieve these things by going out there and selling Nigeria as the CEO of this country.
Prince Ado Ibrahim, you know the concern for many Nigerians, especially as it concerns the other parties like yours, is that we hear some of these wonderful ideas. We hear the brilliance and there are expectations that, you know what, let's have this alternative going into the elections. But then as we approach the elections, they begin to collapse their structures, either drop out of the race or merge. Some of them go with the parties that are tipped to win, the APC, the PDP, and then the smaller parties come together. So I ask you this question, are you willing to go the distance or are you open to an alliance?
I have a very stubborn side of me that causes a lot of people to think I'm arrogant. I didn't come here to finish last. I came here to present myself. And just by presenting myself and presenting my ideas, I'm being true to myself and my heritage. I believe that you will follow me or you won't. I don't believe that we need to collapse anything. YPP has to be strong enough to move forward. The last person that had this position failed and walked away. I have no intention of doing that because I believe that just because of the way the party is structured, because of what its beliefs are, which I bought into, we must stay the course. 2023 is not a watershed moment. Nigeria is going to live past that period of time. But I'm convinced that we cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's pure insanity. And we're not going to get anywhere. And we've got kids that are sitting there jobless. A 4-year degree takes 7 years. Most of the people who are going to run this country, that want to run this country, have but 1 degree, if that. I'd like to see the people's educational background. Because if you don't know what education is, if you don't understand that your leadership, if it's educated and passes that education down, you're building better security because they understand they're educated. You're building a better workforce because they understand they're educated. You're building a better national polity because they're educated. Those are some of the fundamentals that this so-called structure has missed. Now, I don't believe that I'm going to sit here and pretend as if I'm a happy Nigerian. I'm not. I'm agitated for a better country, and I want to agitate other Nigerians to say, look, we can do better.
So that means no alliance? You're not ready to merge with any other party?
Look, I believe in the politics without any kind of bitterness. And if other people want to come and join us, they're very welcome. But I don't see me going anywhere because I don't see anybody at the level in which I want this country to be. There's no compromise. We win or we keep fighting. Nobody's built what I've built. And my power record is beyond anything this country or this continent has seen. I believe in that, and my track record speaks for itself. My skill set with people in different countries, whether, as I said, whether in Asia, South America, or in the Americas, I have done very, very well. I am popular with a lot of leaders today around the world, and I have them on my Rolodex. I can call. Those are the kind of that's what Nigeria is going to get with a president and a leader of this caliber that I want to bring forward.
Do you think that this country is at that stage where we've gone past political party structure and we'll be looking at the individuals? I ask this because you're a member of the YPP, one of the weaker parties. When the PDP and the APC speak, what edge would you say that your party would have over them? Have we gone past party structures to win elections?
I will tell you that the only party structure that they have is money. Because in order for them to
How about membership, party membership?
See, party membership, we're like sheep. They follow where the money is. They follow where the food is. I'd rather be in the pool where you see fish when they swim. They follow the right person. So
that's why I ask you. Yes. You have an idea of what Nigerian politics should be. We all do.
Yes, of course.
But is it what it is?
You see, the truth is, we can't fight them the way they are structured right now. I'd be insane of me to think I'm going to go and waste what I've worked hard for my family and for myself and put it into a race. What I want to do is be smart. Look where those gaps are. And I'll go back to what I said. 86 million people were registered to vote in 2019. 28 million people voted. 58 million people are on the sideline. I don't care what you do with those 28 million people. President Buhari is not even on that ballot for next time. So 15 million people are there to be taken. I want to win the hearts and minds of that 58 million people. They were not part of that structure that we keep talking about. I think it's blinding that the media will take this as some kind of set rule already that these two parties are standing. They're parties by name. But I also believe that in any democracy that is worth its while, people like you play the most important part of what that country's lifestyle, that country's emergence is going to be like. Yes, we have the presidency. Yes, we have the judiciary. Yes, we have the legislature. But the fourth run in that is media. Without that media visibility, none of us, APC, PDP, YPP, or whoever else, have any way of reaching the people. And if the media is not just, if it's not true, it doesn't give an equal footing to all of us, we don't get to be seen. So if I throw money at media and I'm these two large parties, I will get there. But they only have the traditional media. Social media is going to play a big part. And you're not going to tell me that Anatiko or Ashiwaju is going to be dancing TikTok He's not going to meet those 60 million people.
Will you be dancing TikTok?
Well, I sure got the moves, that's for sure.
But I think you should give me my flowers now. I mean, I'm talking to you.
Yes, and I'm grateful for that, because I think that for me is the freshness that Nigerians want to see. Look, I'm not afraid of any topic. I've studied what I've studied. I've been educated the way I've been educated. I've been where I've been. And you cannot fake what I have. It's not, there's nothing. I'm not afraid of any question, because I know that the integrity of me is what I want Nigerians to see.
Great. You talked about your work with the United Nations. You seem to have an international appeal. As a businessman as well, you've met with heads of governments, and you've been involved in high business deals. Some people have described you as one of the nation's greatest exports. I'm sure that really puts a smile on your face. So I ask you now, how would you leverage on all these in terms of portraying the country in good light if you become president, as well as attracting foreign direct investment?
I think for one, I believe that Nigeria has not had its moment yet in the global community. The advantage of having a leader such as myself is that I understand what they're saying. I had the absolute honor of spending a lot of time with Prime Minister Mahathir of Malaysia. And it's actually through him that I got this idea of the CEO of a country, because he always said that he was the CEO of Malaysia Incorporated. And he took that as his mantle, and he built one of the roaring tigers of Asia. And he was hands-on. And that introduction of what real sort of patriotic leadership means was what embedded itself in my heart. And I took time to meet with leaders in the UAE. How did they build what they built? What was it? And everything that I know boils down to one thing: ownership. We must own our country so that we can believe in it. If you tell a young man, go and be a farmer, he'll look at you twice and say, you want me to go and do what? Break my back? But the farming we know in Nigeria is sustenance farming. We farm what we have, and we cannot sell it, we eat it. Most other farming nations are cash crop farmers. We farm, we sell, we take the money, and we can eat whatever we want. The Nigerian leadership has not really put that made in Nigeria label on anything. Even localizing is poor. The infrastructure of moving goods from where it's produced to the market is terrible. The roads are bad. There's no cold chain. By the time you get something to market, 90% of what you've taken to market has rotten, is perishable, so it's dead. Price of onions, tomatoes, depending on what the weather's like, is going to change. We haven't really put the structures. And having worked with agriculturalists around the world, from South Africa to the Netherlands, I also understood that if you do not have good roads, if you do not have the cold chain, if you don't have storage facilities, if you don't have a pride in labeling your product, and that label tells you who you are, you're not going anywhere. So a leadership from a person like me is one way. I delegate to technocrats, people. You can't do everything. So you must find people who have like minds, young people who also understand what I'm trying to portray, that have been outside, that can encourage this kind of new Nigeria, owning what we have, believing in our country, and walking out of this country and going anywhere and having that pride. We can take away the negativity of all these scams that we're known for and bring something that's new. And this is not something that is Malik's mind. China did it. I remember back growing up in Lagos, when somebody told you something, oh, I'm going to say this, they ask you, is it made in Taiwan? And you say yes, oh, no. But now, everybody wants it. China did the same thing. It was made in China, it was even worse. That was because the government and the leadership of China and Taiwan put a concerted effort into that. And that's why I think places like the east of Nigeria, if you put a lot of effort into structures, power, giving industry, we have some of the most talented industrialists in Nigeria in the east of this country. That could be our Taiwan, that could be our China. I look at the Niger Delta, we've got flared gas. Nobody's talking about anything. We're flaring it, we're causing an environmental hazard. I would turn that into power down there and create another industrial base, because there would be really cheap power. That could be moved from the Niger Delta to Europe, to the Americas, because it's portside. We're not thinking, our leadership just takes things, and we put the wrong person. We may put a doctor into a minister of power. We put a lawyer into power. We've done that already. We're not putting people who are qualified technocrats in what they do so that they can bring that education, that spirit of knowledge, and improve Nigeria. And I need to change that.
Would you also be reviewing Nigeria's foreign policy? Because as it stands now, it seems to be focusing on Africa.
Focusing on Africa is not a bad thing. I think we had a misstep for West Africa. I think one of the things we did wrong was to not take our leadership role in Africa as in the spirit in which I think an Abacha had done. We stamped our presence in Africa. We're a big economy because we're a big nation by numbers. Our foreign policy back in those days was based on oil. We used oil as a foreign policy tool. We helped our neighboring countries so that we would vote together as a bloc. Nigeria led, they followed. In this administration, I think we lost that. We closed our borders. We became very worried about the wrong sort of things. The stuff that we closed the borders for is still coming in because we didn't fix our border infrastructure, and we just did the wrong things. We don't have the international presence we used to. And I think changing that is not a bad idea. But again, we don't produce anything that the world wants. When we had oil and gas, people were coming here. There's opportunity because there's large numbers. But we need to produce things that we can export so that the Nigerian flag is flown for something we're good at.
Such as what?
I still think we're the food basket of the world. We have 54 million hectares of arable land that is not touched. 54 million. I mean, there's no country on earth that has that available, freely available today. If we mechanized and put technology into our farming, with all the climate change, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, Nigeria could be a completely different nation. And I'll give you another thing. That flared gas, what is Europe fighting for right now with Russia? Energy. We're flaring this given wealth from God. We're just flaring it and polluting. I would be agitating for the Europeans to come into Nigeria, build not the West African pipeline, the Sub-Saharan pipeline that this administration has been agitating for, because going through the middle of Africa is very dangerous. It will get blown up. There's no doubt about it. My idea would be to feed the African countries around the West African coast and pipe that gas into Europe and get tremendous wealth from that. We're not thinking the right way.
You know, in building this country, many believe that the traditional institutions should not be neglected. Now, you are royalty. You're the son of the Ohinoi of Ibira land in Kogi State. Would you, if you become president, would you push for some form of legislation that would further entrench the roles played by traditional institutions, especially with regard to peace building and security?
We have had a serious misstep by not doing what we were good at. Our traditional rulers are in the most important part of our security infrastructure. See, the traditional rulers live amongst the people. They're not governors that live in the state cap. They live amongst their people. And so they know when something is wrong. They know when somebody has kidnapped somebody and put them in a village hut. The intelligence they grab is enormous. But when a local government chairman can move a traditional ruler, or when a 8-year term governor can destroy a dynasty of over 200 years and split it into 4, we are doing ourselves, we're not only just eroding our history and destroying it, we're eroding our infrastructure of security as well. So I believe that under a presidency such as mine, I would try to re-establish the Traditional Rulers Council. So they have direct access to the presidency. They have direct access to the management of the presidency. So we get good intel. We know where there's soil erosion. We know where there are issues with clashes. We can get first-hand knowledge very, very quickly, not before it escalates into something bad, but to nail it at its inception. So I'm a big believer that the traditional rulers have a significant part to play in where we are. We took on a political system that was not ours. We took an American system and said, let's just do this. They don't have tribes. They don't have the deep religious divisiveness that we have. And so we failed. And we should have taken part of our old and mixed it with the new. And I've studied this enough to know that unless those structures and the structures of the churches and the mosques and the religious leaders to have access to leadership is key in keeping this country where it needs to be, which is a calm, peaceful nation, which we are.
So I find that you're really passionate about the physically challenged. What sort of legislation can compel governments to get the physically challenged actively involved in their policies?
You see, again, another misstep. We have people working with disabilities, and we talk about these as if they're, just abstract people. But if you really believe that you could do something for people with disabilities, you would have ramps on your roadside so that wheelchaired people can go across. You would have traffic lights that give you that signal to let blind people know that they can cross across the roads. You'd have public transport that you'd be able to put a handicap wheelchair onto that bus. You can talk all you want, but not do those deeds, and you've failed. They are a part of us. They're a good percentage of the population as well. Because we have such a large population, we also have people with disabilities. We have servicemen that come injured that have to re-assimilate into society. But when you cannot get a bus to take you where you need to go, when you cannot cross the road without bumping into something, when the roads are bad enough that you might even fall into a pothole, we failed. So we really have to look at engineering that so that we bring them into our societies. Every one of us in our families has somebody who's incapacitated somehow. So it's incumbent on all of us to be able to look at this and say, you know what, let's give this a chance. If we're building roads, let's put the ramps. In fact, it's less cement. You're not even putting that block up there. It's just thinking these things through. But I tell you what, if you've never traveled, if you've never lived in a society that this happens, if you've never seen a bus that stops and has a ramp that comes down and picks somebody up, or a wheelchair that's put on the front, or even a bicycle that can be put on the front, you're looking at these things from the wrong area. If you don't see those things, you don't know. You can't live in a hole and think you know everything outside. You must come out there, explore, come back, and make yourself a better person. And every nation where you've had an explorer has been a better nation. Whether it's Marco Polo or Sir Christopher Wren, they've gone and brought things back to England or to Italy, and they've made their countries a better country.
Let's talk about your Reset Nigeria initiative now. I also recall that you set that up, I think a few months after you joined politics?
Actually, just before.
Just before,
yeah.
Exactly. So what was the intention and how much progress have you made with that?
Well, to be honest, I started this in 2017 as a project to try to understand where the issues in Nigeria were. And it gave me this ability to travel around and see where the four legs of reset set. I think the reason I got into it was I felt the foundation was completely off, completely wrong. And we needed to do something that was a little bit different. So in order to build your house on a wonky foundation, you need to make sure that either you're piling it or getting it structurally set. And I find that in order to do that, we needed to do four things and do them very well. Infrastructure, we need to fix our roads, because if we don't, nothing. We're 90% dependent on our road system. Our rail, I don't even want to get into that, but let's fix the roads first. Fundamental infrastructure. Power, we need to get that right. 4,000 megawatts in a country of 200 million people, and you're producing 12,000 and you can't get it to the people. It's wrong. The energy mix is wrong. There's no understanding of the power infrastructure, and that needs to change. Security, retooling our military, getting more educated people into this security, whether it's the military or the police. Our military is 150,000 men and women in all services for a country of 200 million people the size of Nigeria. It's appalling. It would really be a crime when a country like Benin can overtake a place like Lagos. We don't even have the tools or the men to do that. We need to retool them. Better arms, the ordinance is different, better ISR, to make sure that we have intelligence gathering, to give them the better weapons, give them better welfare. And that in return allows that infrastructure to be solid. And if you do three of those things, the fourth thing comes into play, which is employment. because you're going to create jobs by building those roads. You're going to create jobs by building a better power system. You're going to have that done by bringing better security personnel. You're creating more jobs. This is the fundamental. Everything else can work, but if you don't fix those things, you cannot add on to layer of that cake, and it'll all fall down at the end of the day.
Where do we get the funding for all these?
Well, you see, the problem is we're funding things that aren't doing anything. How much money have we spent on power? Billions. There's no structure. There's no plan. A country that's going somewhere without a plan is failed. Oh, I need this, you give money. Oh, I need that, you give money. But if you planned it, you know I have to give money for this. You prioritize.
In terms of revenue generation,
Look,
how would you generate revenue for the country?
well, first, simply, I would make sure that the country goes back to work by putting the power structure. And the power structure is not as expensive as we think. I'm building a power structure in Adamawa State for a company that I've fallen in love with because it's producing milk, yogurt, cheese, and ice cream in the middle of the desert using my power systems. We put 5 megawatts into one of the most state-of-the-art factory in Africa, producing milk, and it's doing some actually pretty incredible things around that milk and yogurt that I will explain. So it's in Adamawa State. It's on an EPZ, an export promotion zone. And what does it do? It takes the milk from the Fulani herdsman and brings it onto the farm and creates yogurt and exports that yogurt. So the Fulani herdsmen are not moving. They're actually staying put. Why? Because we need them to stay put to collect that milk, and they're getting revenue from that. We've changed the structure of what's happening in places like Mayobelwa and Ganye, where the farmers, the herdsmen are not moving. 5,000 families we're taking milk from onto Sebore International, and we're powering that using renewable energy. There is no power from the Yola Disco going to this particular farm. And we have 25 megawatts that's coming onto that farm. Private sector. Now, the national grid in Yola has 12 megawatts. We've doubled that on a farm. And that 12 megawatts is for 4 states. It's appalling. You can't build anything. So if we retool, if we understand that we don't need to buy a big turbine to be able to do what batteries and solar, we've got the sun, we run away from it every day when we can harness it. So it's a retool, and you cannot retool an old mind. I'm sorry. You need young, fresh leadership that I can bring to the table that says, we're going to do this. There's a Marshall Plan for Nigeria.
I think your interest in power is very important. It will help drive a lot of sectors.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't answer the question of how you intend to improve the revenue generation of a country.
Well, if you have power, then the multiplier effect is massive. You can now produce anything you want. And all the entrepreneurs now key into it, because today, if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to produce something, the first thing that's going to come to my mind is I need a generator because the power's not going to work. So I'm going to invest very heavily into that. And I have to fuel that, and I have to maintain that. And the cost of fuel is doing this all the time. It needs to be a flat line. My CapEx is fine. My OpEx cannot fluctuate. And so renewable energy, the way I do, and I've been doing this, mind you, globally, so it's not something it's not a hocus pocus or juju, as they call it, for when I put it somewhere. It's something I'm doing. I'm doing this in a large scale, even building a factory in Turkey with the Turkish government. This is not because I'm bad at it, it's because I'm pretty good at it. And I want to bring this home. And that flatlining of your power curve allows for better hospitals, allows for better schools, allows for better engineering for whatever it is you're going to build. Productivity is much better because you know you have a fixed cost. Now, this goes back to when you put a leader that hasn't built anything. What is he going to tell you? I'll give them power. I promise you 15,000 megawatts. Do you know what it takes to put 15,000 megawatts onto the grid? The grid that doesn't work? You need renewables, and you need to know what renewables can do. I hear all these things that people are saying, and I'm saying, you have a clue. And that's the reason why I think that if you have a debate, most of them won't turn up. Because you must have, this can't be something on paper. This is something that is inside you. You must know what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for your pocket. I'm not interested in filling my pockets. God has been kind. And it's generational. This is not first, second, or third generation. I want my country to go back to where I believe we started and where I want to propel it where I think it needs to be. And I have the vision for that, and I have a plan. And I want to sell that plan to Nigerians in a way that they can accept it.
Well, speaking of revenue generation, improving our productivity is very important. And the federal government spends quite a lot of money on recurrent expenditure on a public service that many describe as inefficient. Now, in terms of improving productivity, if you become president, what sort of reforms would you bring to the civil service to improve productivity?
Well, I think we have an archaic system that needs a complete makeover. I don't believe, for example, that FEC is a once-in-a-week thing. I think FEC is every day. I think every minister sits in the boardroom with the president as the CEO of Nigeria Incorporated and gets this country back to work. I don't believe their palm secs are sitting there dishing out money. They should be in that building too, so that we can monitor what the country is doing, whether it's in healthcare or productivity of any of the goods or our sales of oil. We need a really concise business environment from the governmental side of things. Now, these elements come to play when it's a deceptive thing that we see, and people take advantage of it, and it's the foreign exchange policy of this country. I don't know any other country in the world that has as many different exchange rates as we do. Let's sanitize this. Let's have one exchange rate. Let's get to a point where we know there's one. Because if you have multiple exchange rates like we do, please don't be surprised there's corruption. Why would I take something at 400 knowing the market's at 600 and not want to make that money? I'd be a fool. I'm opening the door for you to be corrupt, for you to be non-productive, because if all I have to do is figure out what I need to do to make myself that money, repay that money that I've taken at 400, because I can sell it at 600. Sanitize that, because then the investor also looks at it and says, okay, I can judge. I don't have to wait for an A&E window so I can import or export my products. Nigeria, England, United States, Russia, everyone has one exchange rate. For the love of God, why do we have multiple exchange rates? So that sanitizing that is going to change everything. We are borrowing more than we need because we're not producing anything. And if you keep borrowing and your oil curve keeps doing all this, and you're not producing anything, you can't make that gap up. We will be spending all the money we bring from oil, paying back the loans after this administration is over. So if we know that, and we know that we're already in trouble, the next president has to come with a productive mindset saying, you know what? Ajakuta, get ready. Gas, get ready. Farming, get ready, because I'm going to put my effort into making those things work. And that's jobs. That's sanitizing. That's productivity. That's bringing foreign exchange back into Nigeria. I'm not going to sit there telling anybody this is going to be easy. I have a 5-year plan to make sure that in that 5 years, my reset mindset, getting those 4 things that I mentioned steady, and get production. We must produce. Everybody comes in, I'm going to manage this. I'm going to manage our resources. We've had managers, not presidents. We need a producer and somebody who's done it and is doing it and understands where the future lies. We turned away Twitter. That was making money for Nigerians because of something that the policy was not right. And we just react instead of having a thinking moment and then pausing and then reacting. And we didn't need to punish somebody that punished a whole bunch of Nigerians at the same time. And I was caught in the wake of that even because I had an OTT channel. We had 1.9 million subscribers. It was something revolutionary. We were the first African OTT channel. But because of the fear of what technology was going to do, we all had to cancel our licenses, and most of us stopped doing business because we thought they're coming for us. That has got to change. We have got to have clear lines. Retool Nigeria, think about what you want to do, deliver those policies, and don't keep wavering. Because when you waver, people lose confidence, investors don't come, and entrepreneurs don't work.
Does it bother you as well that when we talk about governance, attention seems to focused more in Abuja, and we forget the subnationals, and that's where there's a challenge. I mean, you're from Kogi State. It's been 8 years of a particular government. Would you say that you're satisfied with the way that Kogi State was run in the past 8 years?
If you ask anybody, I think the answer will be unanimously no. We don't produce anything. Tell me one thing that Kogi states produce. And I tell you, it's one of the most prolific parts of Nigeria that you could ever wish for. And I'll give you some just straight statistics. We have two power producing units there, Geregu 1 and Geregu 2. We have gas coming in through Ajaokuta. We have Ajaokuta sitting there that's in moribund state. We have Itape. We have a rail line that goes between Itape and Warri. We have Dangote's Abajana. We have a tremendous amount of raw materials. We have iron ore. We have limestone. But what are we producing? We have the worst roads in Kwara State, then in Kogi State, leading into Kwara State, into Edo State, into Anambra, the worst roads, because we're industrialized. Now, me as a layman looking at this, I would say, wait a minute, you have Lokoja, you have the ability to be able to take that silted waterway between Ajaokuta and Port Harcourt, something that historically the British used to load the materials that they took from Africa and took it down to Warri and Port Harcourt to load the big ships to go back to the UK. We should be using Kogi for different things. We are the center. You have to cross Kogi State to go north, south, east, or west. Why haven't we built our own bridge? Why hasn't the governor looked at this and said, you know what, bring a company and toll this? There's so much to do. But when you talk about this power being centralized, every state comes back to mother to get fed. The money is in Abuja. The government takes all that revenue and gives money to the states. What is the impetus it gives me to be productive? Why would I produce when I know that in 30 days I'll get some more money? There's nothing there. So it encourages lackluster leadership. And that has to change. And it changes when you change it at the top. You lead by example, and everybody else has to follow.
We're almost out of time now, but first off, happy Democracy Day to you.
Thank you, likewise.
I'd like to, you listened to the president's last Democracy Day speech just before he hands over by next year. What did you make of his speech?
Well, look, I always say that, you do your best, and when your time is up, you leave the rest to God, and you exit the stage left. I didn't vote. I'm not going to criticize. 28 million people voted. This is their country. I'm just living in it. And I encourage Nigerians to realize that from the speech the President made today, you'll get your PVC. You'll listen to all of us. Who touches you the most? Who gives you the best amount of hope? And then we don't replay what we just went through. Be a part of your country by voting, because when you vote, you have ownership. If you didn't vote, shut the hell up.
Well, you didn't vote.
I know, and that's why I kept quiet. Why? I wasn't here, actually, to be honest. So
just needed to clarify that.
I didn't clarify that. And the option to vote for me at that point in time, especially in 2019, when I looked at it, it was incumbent should win. That was what challenged me to retool myself, get reset ready, prepare myself to be an addition. I didn't think I was going to be in this race, but the more I saw nobody was coming, nobody was ready, I decided, well, you know what? Maybe that is my destiny. That maybe that's what I'm on this earth for. We propose, God disposes. But I just say that part of what I'm doing is by example. I want to lead. And I'm putting myself out there to be scrutinized. Not a problem. But Nigerians also should want a leader. And in order to do so, you need to be prepared to vote. So the tools are there. INEC has done its job. You need to get that. You need to do your homework. And let's see a mass. Let's see 80 million people vote. And then we know we have a true democracy, something that has channeled its way to find good leadership. And they give you money, for the love of God, take it, but still vote your conscience. Because at the end of the day, it's your money. Yeah. I don't see anybody who's taking money from themselves because they've not built structures. Whether you are a creation of a company that is, because you're a vice president, you have the ability to have a massive company that makes you money, great. Or you are a governor of a state that is one of the biggest IGR companies. Those two parties are being led by gentlemen that we have to question. And as a competitor, I want to question that because Nigerians need to know.
Just before we go, let's talk about the electoral process leading up to the 2023 general elections. Now, the president did say that governments, executive, legislature, judiciary, were and are still committed to delivering an electoral process or an improved electoral system. From what you see ahead of the elections, are you confident hearing that kind of statement, that the process would be smooth, fair?
By God's grace, it will be fair. By God's grace, it will be smooth and violence-free. The system is improving, and a democracy will always evolve. We are getting better. The tools are there. INEC is better. The Electoral Act that Mr. President signed, I think, will go down in history as one of the steps in which we've got better governance through better voting. I believe that the way we're situated now for the moment, this is what we have. We have to deal with it. But we have to be vigilant. This is our country. We cannot let foreign elements come in at play, and we cannot have local elements come and destabilize us. So I think that it's up to us to witness this and see it as a watershed moment in Nigeria. We vote, we see where we went wrong, and we try to improve. Even in America last election, we're seeing what Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden went through. Everybody says something is rigged, whether you're the biggest democracy in the world, and they try to fix it. So we must try to fix ours. We will need fixes, but we need to be vigilant so we know where those problems lay.
Well, that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Prince Malik Ado Ibrahim, presidential candidate of the YPP. Thank you very much for your time. And I wish you well with your presidential
I wish us all well.
ambition. Let's see how Nigerians react to this and whether they see you as a breath of fresh air.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Well, that's Political Paradigm. Thank you for your time. Catch this episode and others on YouTube. Search Political Paradigm or go to channelstv.com and catch up. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.